This is problem 517B. And we've got the information listed below refers to the employees of Brennan and Company for the year ended December 31st, 2013. And if we keep reading, I'm going to skip this data for just a minute. And this gives us all of our information. 2013, the contribution rate. This is State D. That's their creative name for the state. Based on the experience rating system is 3.6% of the first 7,000 for each employee's earnings. This is the unemployment. The state tax returns are due 1 month after the end of each calendar quarter. During 2013, the company paid $3,024 of contributions to State D's unemployment fund. We have our phone number, their reporting number. The last payment of the year is used to pay the FUTA tax for the fourth quarter. And the reason for that is the first 3 quarters liability was more than the $500 threshold. So they would have already paid those in. If those had been less than 500, then we would wait and pay all of it at the end of the year. But the first quarters have already been paid. So this fourth quarter, it's going to be due at the 1 month after the end of the quarter. So that's January 31st, 2014 for $1.80. And let me show you where we got that. I mean, it's 300 times 6%, but let's look and see how we calculated that. So the way I did it sort of looks Christmassy, but remember, you have to track each employee, and once they've reached 7,000, then you don't, they're not subject to unemployment. So what I did was, if it has anything written in red is included in the total taxable wages for state unemployment. So in the first quarter, only 3 people met the $7,000 limit. So everything in green means ignore the green and look at the red. So if you add all the red dots plus these 3 700s or thousands, the total taxable wages were $46,000. Second quarter, now David Morrow has reached the limit because 4,000 plus 3,000 helps him reach the limit, so that extra 800 is just discarded. So if it has a red dot by it, it's because the sum of their payroll year to date has not yet equaled 7,000. So Con reaches the limit and only has to pay on 3,200. Maury Black reaches the limit, only has to pay on 500. We include the 2,300. And Kurt Weiner reaches the limit, but he pays on the 7,000. And Ryan Harrow reaches the limit and only has to pay 17. So the red items added together equal 26,500. Now in the third quarter, Mary's son reaches the limit. So of her total payroll of 6,300, she only has to pay tax on 900. This is unemployment, state unemployment tax I'm talking about. Randy Wade has to pay 1,400, and the rest are crossed off because they've already reached the limit in previous quarters, so we don't even include them. So this includes the red. We add up all these red items, and we get 11,200. The fourth quarter, everybody's reached the limit except for Kelly Woods, and Kelly reaches it right here. So 300 is all that is taxed in the fourth quarter. And so the tax on that, if you take 300 times 0.006, it's $1.80. So that is where we get the Part A done. Okay, now this is included just for informational purposes only. For Part B, we are required to do the employer's report for the unemployment compensation, State D. And we're doing it for the fourth quarter only. And item 1 is the number of employees employed in the pay period that includes the 12th of each month in the quarter. So they're telling us that for Brennan, the number of employees is 10 in October, 9 in November, and 8 in December. And we'll come back and, we'll have to use those numbers in just a minute. All employees earned 13 credit weeks during the last quarter except for Sun and Harrow. Sun only worked 8 and Harrow only worked 9. So let's go to the state unemployment report form. And let's look down here. First off, we are just listing all of the gross wages paid for all of the employees. And this is just taken from the fourth quarter column in the information given. So there was no calculation involved in this. A couple of items to note here. The solution manual is off by 1,000. The total wages paid to mints were not 10,800. They were 9,800. And you can see that right here. If you look at mints, the total wages were 9,800. So the solution just has a typo there. So if you add all these up, they add up to 66,800, not the 67,800. So I take that number and put it up here. That's the total gross wages. And then the tax, these are off. These lines are off a little bit. I'm struggling to get this paper thing to work here, this recording. But I'll just tell you what it's supposed to be so you can line it up. So line 2, gross wages, 66,800. Line 4 is 300 times, it's just 300. Line 5 is 1080. That's the 300 times the 3.6%. Whoa, something just happened there. Sorry, this is a little touchy, this Surface tablet that I'm working with. And then line 6 is also 1080, and the final line is 1080. So that's basically the report. And this red X is supposed to be right here, Internet. That's what that's about. Okay, let's look at the requirement for Part C. Part C, we're going to fill out the Form 940. It's the annual FUTA return. Indicate on each form the date that the form should be submitted and the amount of money that must be paid. The president of the company prepares and signs all tax forms. Alrighty, so let's go to that one. We've got the name of the company. They filled all this out for you. Total payments to all employees, this $267,700 was given. That's the total from the column in the information given. Line 5, total of payments made to each employee in excess of $7,000. Well, if you jump down to line 7, if you've got 12 employees and they all hit the $7,000 threshold, which they did, then that means you have total FUTA wages of $84,000. So your total wages were $267,700 minus the $84,000 FUTA. So that gives you total payments in excess of $183,700. That gets carried to line 6. Sorry about that. I'm telling you, I wave this wand and it's very sensitive, this tablet that I'm making this recording on. So the FUTA tax is just the $84,000 times 0.008, because it was 8%, and so it's $504. There's no adjustments to be made in Part 3, and so you just carry that down to line 12 and then line 13. It's pretty self-explanatory from the solution. Okay, then we go to the back side of the report. The first quarter, these are all the liabilities by quarter, and all of these numbers come from what we did up in the very first part. They come from, this is the tax for the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. So that's all 4 of those are just being now transferred to the actual report. Total those up, it equals 504, which is how we know we don't have any adjustments, because what we actually deposited is right on. Terry is going to have to sign it, and he's president, and then you write the phone number in. And that is done.